Alex, how are you doing? Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Ian. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Jolly good. Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm doing well as well. Everyone knows Alex Whittingham, boss Bristol Groundschool, one of the main ATPL theory training providers. I just want to go through some sort of kind of quick questions about the ATPL theory because it can tend to be a fairly dry subject for some people. So let's just see if we can make this accessible and interesting, as it were. So question number one, what is ground school?
Ground school is all the theoretical knowledge that you need to acquire. The theory is that you need it as sort of background knowledge for your future career as a pilot. But also there's the requirement to pass the theoretical knowledge exams to get your license. So it's kind of two things. In fact, we always have this conflict that we're trying to teach people well so that this is stuff that is of value to them in their future career, but we've also got this parallel requirement to get them through the exams.
Okay, so talking of getting them through the exams, what are the different subjects in the ATPL Ground School?
Goodness, there are 13 subjects. You don't want me to list them out, do you? I might even forget some, but there's navigation, aircraft instrumentation, aircraft general knowledge. It's about engines and electrics and hydraulic systems and things like that. There are topics that relate to human interaction. We call it human performance. So how you get on with other people. Included in that subject is physiology, the effects of altitude, the effects of oxygen deprivation, all of that sort of stuff. Operational procedures, the beginnings of how you're actually going to operate an airliner when you finally get employment. All learned at a comparatively early stage, and the chances are, unfortunately, you forget about 60% of it, but the rest of it will come back and you'll think, oh yeah, I remember learning about that when it becomes applicable in your future career.
So lots and lots of subjects.
There are 13 subjects, yes, 13 separate.
Are they kind of like, is any one of them like a big standout, meaty, chunky one, or?
Well, not really a meaty standout chunk. There are some that are comparatively straightforward. There's a subject called communications, which is just about use of the radios. And most people who've got themselves a private pilot's license would be able to pass that probably without too much effort. A few little wrinkles and crinkles in it. There are some subjects which are quite large and require a bit of background understanding, like meteorology. I mean, when you start off doing your private pilot's license, you learn about the basics of meteorology, about clouds and wind and stuff like that. But in the higher grades of license, in the airline transport pilot's license, the ATPL, you go into the theory of meteorology quite deeply, because of course, when you do a commercial flight, you are responsible as the operating pilot for analysing the weather on the route and identifying any potential hazards that you might encounter along the route.
How long does it take? You know, if someone signs up and starts their ATPL theory, when are they going to hopefully have ticked that box and had all their passes?
Well, there are two paths for the theory. You can, if you wish, go to a classroom environment and sit down and learn the whole thing from beginning to end. And some schools do operate like that. And if they do operate like that, then you're basically looking at 6 months from beginning to end for the whole thing. It's a fairly intense 6 months as well. The alternative path, which most pilots take, is to follow what is called a modular route, where you do little bits of training in specialist schools. And in the modular route, you can do a distance learning exercise. I hesitate to compare it to the Open University, but it's the same sort of philosophy where you work at home and you work it around your life and your job. So you can't obviously work at the same rate. And most people who take the sort of distance learning path will take somewhere between a year, 18 months, a year and 2 years perhaps, to complete the whole exercise at a slightly slower pace.
Okay, and when you come to sit the exams, first of all, do you do all the study and then go and sit 13 exams all in one go?
It's a very interesting question. It slightly depends on where you take your exams. The standards that we work to in the UK are still the European standards called the EASA standards. And if you take your exams in some EASA states, they do require you to do all of the learning first, and then you can take the exams. But you don't have to take all the exams at once. You can take 3 exams, then 4 exams, like that. But you have to do all the learning first. Most states let you do some subjects, take some exams, some more subjects, take some exams, like that. So the training is usually split into what we all call modules, whether you do it as a 6-month sit-down course or whether you do it on a distance learning course. So, and usually 3 modules. So you'll do sort of 4 exams, training for 4 subjects, take 4 exams, training for 5 subjects, take 5 exams, like that, in bits.
How many questions are there in each exam, and are they multiple choice?
Crikey. Well, the number of questions per exam changes. And again, it's a long list, and it does depend slightly on the syllabus you're taking. But a typical paper would involve somewhere in the order of 60 to 70 questions and would typically take about 90 minutes. There are longer papers, there are shorter papers, but that's a sort of typical exam. Most of the questions are multi-choice in the sense they're A, B, C, D, and you have to tick the correct answer. Not all are like that, but there are some questions that have been introduced in the last 2 or 3 years, first by the UK, but very shortly by the Europeans as well, which involve a number of different options, like you might get a drop down. So they might say, da-da-da-da-da, and then there's a drop down. You have to choose one of 2 phrases that match the sentence, and then da-da-da-da-da, and you have to choose a drop down that matches the rest of the sentence. So the questions like that. There are also what we call multi-select questions, where you're given a list of 8 or 10 statements and you have to identify which 5 are correct. And there are also questions mostly to do with calculations, where you just type in a number.
So talking of the calculation questions, are you allowed to take a calculator in, or do you have to do it on one of those whiz wheel things?
One of those whiz wheels. Well, happily, we're allowed to take calculators in to the exams nowadays. So they've got to be non-programmable scientific calculators. You're not allowed to take the electronic navigation computers that you can buy from some of these aviation shops that work out all the wind angles and headwinds and tailwinds and stuff like that. So just a calculator and one of them whiz wheel thingies that you referred to.
You take these 60 questions, a variety, 60-ish questions, a variety of multiple choice and other types of questions. What's the pass mark?
The pass mark or the pass rate?
Pass mark.
75% is the pass mark.
Does everybody pass first time, all of the subjects?
No. It depends very much on the state of the exams. The EASA and the CAA have a habit of changing exams and introducing new subjects. And when they introduce new subjects, there's usually a little bit of chaos in the market as people get used to the new subjects. But if you're taking an exam that is relatively stable, but there haven't been significant changes for the last 2 or 3 years, then the pass rates are very high. And the expectation, certainly of our students, is that they would all pass everything.
Let's say new materials come in, or you've got a bad day for whatever reason and you fail. Presumably you can retake the exam?
Oh yeah, you can retake the exams. There's limits on how many times you can take them. Each paper you can take 4 times. And if you muff it on the 4th attempt, then you basically have to restart all the exams. And you're allowed, as I mentioned earlier, to take them in sittings. So you don't have to take them all at once. And you're allowed 6 sittings in total. And if you run out of sittings again, you have to restart the exams. But those are rare events, to be honest.
Okay, I've heard of people in the past who've said to me, "Yeah, I passed all my exams, but they ran out." What does that mean?
Well, there are a couple of timescales on these exams. The first is that from the first exam you take, you've got 18 months to complete the whole exercise. Now, given that the first exam you take for a distance learning candidate at least is going to be about 6 months into your study, 3 to 6 months, you're looking at just short of 2 years to complete the whole exercise. And again, as I said earlier, mostly people take sort of 12 to 18 months. So from the beginning, as opposed to 2 years. The second constraint is the exams themselves, once passed, have a life. So they have 3 years from the last pass for you to complete the flying elements of your license. And if you just do the ground school and then do no flying for the next 3 years, then the ground school exams die quietly and you have to redo the whole thing.
Lastly, last question for you. How much does it cost?
What, the ground school or the whole course?
No, the ground school.
Ground school. Typically, you're looking at somewhere between £2,500 for the course. And you have exams. The exam fees vary from state to state, but in the UK, I think you're looking at about another £1,000 of exam fees to the UK CAA.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. See you later.
See you later.
Thanks very much for watching. As ever, please leave a comment, like the video, and if you haven't already, do subscribe to our channel for all the latest general aviation news.